Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Okay. I don't know how many of you guys are following Tom Taylor on Twitter, but he recently tweeted out this image with an eye and this quote from Batman that said, "I think things could have been different." And every indication that people are taking from this is that Tom Taylor's writing a new Injustice comic. And I really, really hope it's true, because here's the thing. I don't know how many of you guys ever followed Injustice 1, right? Like, for people who never followed Injustice 1, you've got Batman and Superman who are like really good friends, and like Lois Lane's pregnant, right? And Batman knows before Superman even tells him, because, you know, the plot called for it. And so because of that, like they're kind of doing this little celebration, and then like Lois Lane is like, I'm gonna go check out some weird story or something like that. Somebody has said they had some information or whatever, and she goes missing. And so you basically end up finding out it's the Joker that kidnapped her, and then Batman's on the trail of like these weird situations going on in Gotham City. That there is like a hydrogen bomb or something like that that's missing. There is fear toxin that's missing, and there's kryptonite that's missing. And it's like, what in the world is going on? And so like once Superman realizes Lois Lane is missing, like everybody stops and just goes on this hunt for Lois Lane. And then eventually like they track her down, right? That she's basically in this submarine, and Superman locates her. And like Batman's talking to Superman, he's like, "Hey man, hold off, you know, don't go running in there." And when Superman breaks in there, the Joker's in there. And then Superman sees Doomsday, right? So Superman like starts like he gets into a fight with Doomsday, like punching him, just beating the crap out of Doomsday, and then flies Doomsday into space. And then Doomsday dies. And it's like, well, that's weird. And then that's when Batman chimes in, and he's like, "It's not Doomsday, it's Lois Lane." And what had happened was the Joker had basically taken the fear toxin of the Scarecrow, laced it with kryptonite, and filled the room. So that when Superman walked in there, the kryptonite made him susceptible to the fear toxin, and he ended up hallucinating Lois Lane as Doomsday. And so he basically ended up killing Lois Lane and his unborn child. After that, Superman flips, like he loses his mind. He ends up racing off, right? Like Batman gets a hold of the Joker, Batman's interrogating him. Superman doesn't even stop, right? He goes racing through there. Green Lantern Hal Jordan tries to stop him. He blows right through his hard light construct, flies in, smashes the room that the Joker's in, and just punches a hole in him. And then from there is like, "Batman, you're a half measure. I'm tired of playing this game, this cat and mouse game with these villains where like we're reactive. Maybe you're okay with like sacrificing innocent lives because you believe villains can be redeemed, but like I'm not." And so basically like Superman goes on this crusade where he becomes kind of like this totalitarian guy. And you guys remember the debates that we used to have, right? When I covered Injustice Year 1, we never, or not really Injustice Year 1, but Injustice 1, we never really did finish Injustice 2, which we probably should. But when we did Injustice 1, we had these amazing debates in the videos, right? Because like, well, I was in support of Superman, right? Like I was like, I agree with Superman, right? Like if the world was going to get it together, it already would have, but the world didn't. So the world didn't want to, right? Like the American people were fine with their government being the way that it was because they took no effort to change it, right? For all the complaining and all the, "Oh, I don't like this and I don't like that," when it came time to put up or shut up, the American people were tested, or they were measured, they were tested, and they were found wanting. They were lazy, right? So they just kind of let the government be the way that it is. And Superman's whole idea was, if you're not going to fix the government, then I will. And then eventually he started turning it on the people, right? If you're not going to get yourselves together, then I will, right? Like there was the whole vigilante group, the Jokers, who basically modeled themselves after the Joker who Superman killed and saw themselves as like a resistant movement to Superman. There was nothing they were ever going to do. They were of no threat to Superman in any capacity whatsoever. But Superman ends up going in there and eradicates them all. And I was like, I'm kind of in support of this. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequence. And they learned what the consequence was for what they were doing, and they were destroyed by Superman, right? So like it was the coolest thing. Like it was an amazing story. Then there were like all these ridiculous moments, right? Like Superman became a Yellow Lantern, you know, and all that stuff. And like Green Arrow was killed by Superman, and like Superman eventually kills Shazam. You learned that like Harley Quinn had a daughter. Injustice is probably one of the greatest comics ever made. It's so cool. It went a little off the rails by the time you got to like year 4, I think it was. It was like, I don't know about all this, but like the whole arc with Constantine, there was this amazing arc with Constantine in Injustice 1, and I'll have the whole playlist down in the description so you guys can check it out. But there was this whole like amazing section, right? I want to say it was year 3, but there was this whole section with Constantine, and the whole idea was that Constantine had, of course, he's like in a life debt more or less to like Trigon, right? Trigon, not really a life debt, but like Trigon's always trying to take him out, and so like of course he has a little girl with him that he's trying to save, and like Mxyzptlk ends up getting involved, and so basically like Constantine Constantine kind of engineers this thing where he's like, there's a major threat here. We got to deal with this threat and all that kind of stuff. And so the whole thing ends with a fight between Mixopitalik and Trigon. And then like they're ultimately teleported to like the void, right? This inescapable place where they will fight against each other for all eternity. And then like you end up finding out the whole thing is a ruse, right? Like Constantine did that just so he could get away, right? Like just so he wouldn't have to worry about Trigon anymore. And then him and the girl basically just left, right? They're like, aren't you going to help us like take care of this whole thing? And he's like, no, man, you guys are screwed. Like you guys can't get it together, right? You guys are all over the place. I don't know what to tell you. Like he just ended up leaving and doing his own thing. The Injustice line of comics were awesome. And if Tom Taylor's coming back and writing Injustice again, then I can only imagine what it's going to be like, right? Especially because I don't know if I'd be behind Tom Taylor writing Injustice if it was another installment of what we've already seen. Because at the end of the day, depending on what ending you chose, Superman won, right? Like the whole thing was over, it was done with, right? The whole thing was concluded one way or another, depending, whether you go with the comic book ending, you go with any one of the endings from the video games, like the whole thing's basically done. There really is no more Injustice anymore. And to kind of introduce this idea of Batman saying like, I think things could have been different. Like, is it like Injustice from an alternate universe? Like nobody knows what it is, right? Like nobody even knows if it really is Injustice, but I have to believe that it is because I feel like that's the story that put Tom Taylor on the map. When I read Injustice, I was like, okay, new rule. I will read anything that Tom Taylor writes. That was my philosophy after reading Injustice. And I feel like it would make sense for him to come back because I feel like that's the story that made him, but who knows what Injustice 3 would be about? I mean, what do you guys think it would be, to be honest, right? Like if you had any ideas on what you think Injustice 3 would be, what do you think it would be like? Right? Because like there were so many cool moments that came out of all that stuff. I mean, maybe it would be like a whole different expansion. Maybe Batman's the bad guy this time. I feel like it's too easy to go that route, but maybe like Batman's the bad guy this time. I have no earthly clue, right? I have no idea. But whatever the case is, I think it would be legit. Right, I think it would be absolutely amazing. The real question here is, if they are going to do it, is it going to coincide with the release of a new Injustice game? Or is Warner Brother Games, are they just done with Injustice, right? Is that like the end of Injustice? I have no idea. But that's the question. Is it going to coincide with a new Injustice game? Even if it doesn't, I honestly don't care because I feel like the Injustice universe is popular enough now. You could launch a line of comics absent the video games, right? You don't really need the games anymore. And that was kind of the funny thing is the comic was better than the story in the game, right? Like the Injustice Gods Among Us line of comics were better than the video games. And it makes sense, right? Because it was just written so well. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section, right? Let me know if you guys are hyped, for one thing. Like, let me know if you guys are excited at the idea of an Injustice 3, because I can't tell you how long I've been waiting to see like another Injustice comic coming out. It's ridiculously good. 2, let me know what you guys think the plot to Injustice 3 would be. That's what I want to know. Like, if you could make up a plot for Injustice 3, what would you make it? Would you invoke like all the Lantern mythos and everything? Like, would you invoke somebody like the Watchmen characters, right? Would you bring in like Rorschach, or somebody like that, or like Dr. Manhattan or whatever? I really hope it does not feature the Batman Who Laughs. I feel like he's been overused way too much. But let me know what you think the plot to this whole thing would be. Regardless, it's an exciting time, right? If it's true, it's an exciting time. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. Now we'll catch you all later. Peace.